Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sales by You. I'm happy to have you here today. Today, I'm going to talk about how much effort we can put into our marketing and sales and then not get the results that we want, meaning we'll post on social, we'll do the networking, we join the groups, we're out there making ourselves visible, and then we're just not getting calls set up or emails coming in that say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you about working together. And there are a few things more frustrating than trying to do something, feeling like you're putting in the work and not getting that result. So I'm going to talk about three different things that might be happening for you that is causing this issue of working, time, input, and not getting anyone responding. Essentially can feel pretty miserable. So I'm going to give you three ideas of what might be happening. But before I jump in, I wanted to invite you to a masterclass I'm hosting on April 7th. It's going to help you understand the four-step sales system that you're going to need in your consulting business in order to consistently bring leads in and nurture them and convert them into clients. So I'm going to touch on that topic today, especially as it relates to you feeling like you're doing a lot and not getting results. And so the four-part system is what I'm going to cover in the masterclass. Sign up at connectandco.co/masterclass. You can find the link in the notes. I invite you to join. This is going to give you an understanding of what you need to be successful as it relates to bringing in clients. So check that out. Hope to see you there. All right. So we're talking about putting the effort in and not getting anybody calling you up, sending emails, inquiries into your work. That is what we're covering today. And I'm going to tell you a few different clients that I've had where they've had a similar experience and how we dealt with that. Welcome to the Sales by You podcast, where I talk about all things sales, mindset, LinkedIn, and how to build a lead to client sales process that works for you. I'm your host, Celina Guerrero, sales and LinkedIn coach. I help consultants and service providers attract high-quality leads that become their best clients. If you're responsible for signing clients in your business and are ready to feel more confident and knowledgeable so you can reach your biggest revenue goals, then this is the show for you. Okay, so the first scenario I want to talk to you about is actually two different clients I had that had very similar challenges. And one was an educational consultant, another was a communications consultant. And one of them was posting on social media, great messaging, getting into the DMs, really, really excellent. She had really worked on that a lot and just doing a great job converting from social into the DMs and then into a call. And the communications consultant was networking like crazy, just really enjoyed it, really creating connectivity in her networks. And people loved her. I mean, they just really thought she was a great person and everything was great. Both of them really good on sales calls. This was not the issue, okay? So they knew how to do social media. They knew how to network in their respective experiences, and sales calls were great. Both of them said, if I get somebody on the call, there's a really high chance that they're going to become a client. So let's talk a little bit about this challenge that they had. What's important to remember is that only 3% of your market is ready to buy or hire you at any given time. And so in both cases, they felt like they were doing all of this stuff and they were getting results. And if they could get someone on the call, everything was grand. The problem was that even though it was sort of working, they didn't really feel like for the effort and the time that they were putting in, they were getting enough inquiries. They were hoping for more calls set up. They were hoping for more email inquiries. For the amount of effort they were putting in, which was in both cases real quality, it was frustrating for both of them. And it was frustrating in part because they didn't have anything else to give. They didn't have more time to network. The communications consultant didn't have more time to network. The educational consultant didn't have more time to post on social media. And so they didn't have anything else to give. And so there was no lever they felt like they could pull in order to get more clients. And so, back to this idea that only 3% of your market is ready to buy at any time, I like to take the converse of that, which is to say 97% of your sales relies on timing. And so, in the case of the social media post or in case of the networking, if there wasn't somebody who was ready to invest at the time that they saw the post or they met the communications consultant at a networking event, if they were not ready then, they kind of disappeared, right? And so if you are someone who is posting a lot or networking a lot and you're maxed out, you can't seem to pull any more time towards this, but you still feel like you're not getting enough clients, then your solution in part is to give your prospective clients a way of continuing to learn about you until they are ready. And what this means in practical terms is, as you know, there's such a thing called a lead magnet or a webinar. And in the case of both of these consultants, what they needed is some sort of lead magnet, some sort of webinar to capture the emails of those people who were interested in the work but maybe not ready, and then regular emails to those people, nurturing them and giving them offers continually over time so that when they were ready, when they were part of that 3%, they became a client. I see this all the time. You're bringing in all of these people. You're so visible out there, but there's no way to continue the relationship except for one-on-one, which again takes more of your own personal time, and you're going to run out of time. So if this sounds familiar to you, then what you'll want to do is reflect on how can I actually capture and continue to nurture those relationships so that when they're ready or they want to refer somebody, I'm still in their lives and still giving them the information that they need to make a decision. Okay. So let's talk about another situation. This was a fairly new consultant that I was working with. He had already written a book. He was very knowledgeable about his work. He had an excellent network, and he was going out there and he was very consistently posting. And what I learned was that he was talking a lot about the service of consulting rather than the problem that his client had and how he helped them make a transformation towards what they wanted. And I said to him, "What is the problem?" And the response was always sort of like, I don't know, it was like always kind of like kind of just silence essentially. And in this case, and this might be you too, this is not about the level of expertise he had. It had nothing to do with that, in fact. He could absolutely create transformation, but the messaging wasn't there. And so he was putting in all this effort of visibility and the posting and the networking, but it was more like I'm a consultant rather than I work with companies who are struggling with this and I help them achieve this other thing. And so again, that's another situation where you can do a lot and feel like you're getting absolutely no traction because you're not being clear with the market, who you serve, how you serve them, what size is the company. Because I can guarantee you a company that has 1,000 employees has very different problems than a company who has a team of 3. And so the clarity in the messaging wasn't there. And so despite everything that he did, it wasn't landing with his prospects, and therefore he wasn't getting inquiries. All right, before I go on to number 3, just want to remind you of the masterclass on April 7th, the 4-part sales system for independent consultants, and specifically for independent consultants, because when we talk about systems for independent consultants, it is a right size system for you at this point in your business. But the point is, you have to have a system. You have to have 4 parts. And that's why I encourage you to attend the masterclass on April 7th. Again, that's connectandco.co/masterclass. Okay, so let's talk about consultant number 3. Number 3 was extremely creative, so many ideas, love to write, love to market. And so she had created a number of different lead magnets, some checklists, some guides. She also was doing workshops or webinars on a quarterly basis throughout the year on topics that were important to her client. And she was like a machine. And so she was producing I think it was at least 2 emails a week. She had the lead magnets and she was doing all of this. And just like the other consultants, did not have real issues with the sales call. The problem was, despite the fact that she had these lead magnets, she actually wasn't bringing enough people in to her email list from those lead magnets. So she too felt like, I have all these lead magnets, I'm doing these live workshops. But what was happening is that when she did a workshop, she literally just didn't get the opportunity of the workshop in front of enough people. So she would bring people in, but the volume wasn't there. And I don't think you need like thousands here, even hundreds, but she wasn't getting it in front of enough people in order for the volume of work that she was doing with the webinars and the lead magnets and the 2 emails weekly for it to make sense. In other words, let's say 1,000 people on her email list, only 3% of those people were ready to hire her, right? The issue was that if there was only 1,000, then it was really only 30. And if 20 of those people were already clients, she wasn't bringing in enough new eyeballs in order for the 3% of those people to convert into clients. So you can see she had that middle juicy engine part of nurturing, but she just didn't have enough people to nurture. Okay? So in all of these cases, people were doing a lot and they were very, very frustrated. And so the theme of this here, as you're probably getting, is that you do need to bring in people and be visible, but you need a way to capture and nurture them in order for them to get to the place and the timing for them to want to have a consultative conversation with you and become a client. Also, if you're going to nurture people, you have to have enough people in the room to nurture, so to speak. If you feel like you're doing a lot of work and one of these resonated with you, I encourage you to sign up for the masterclass. I'm going to help you create your own 4-part sales system and see where you have the gap. You might already have identified where the gap is for you based on these 3 scenarios that I just shared with you. But come to the masterclass and you'll be able to diagnose for yourself a little bit about where those gaps are for you so that all the effort that you're putting in actually converts into clients. I hope this was helpful and I hope to see you on April 7th. It's connectandco.co/masterclass. Hope to see you. And you can always reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn. I can be reached there. And I appreciate you listening. And I hope that this has gotten you one step closer to more consistent revenue, more clients you love working with in your business. That's my goal for you. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales by You podcast. If you heard something in this episode that made you think someone you know would really find that helpful, send them a link to this podcast episode. If you want to learn another aspect of improving your sales, subscribe to this podcast so you can catch the next episode of Sales by You. Lastly, thank you for giving this podcast a review. What you think matters. See you next time.